Guys, so today we're going to be talking about how teachers manage to build wealth, take their children to school, build permanent houses, live a good life while earning just under 20,000. For those who are not in Kenya, that is just under $200. How did teachers in a country like Kenya manage, and still manage up to now, so I shouldn't use the past tense did. They still do manage. They take their children to school and they never have less than 4 children. They build permanent houses, they still do some businesses, they still live a good life. So how did they manage just 20,000 shillings? Because a lot of people do come to me and tell me, hey, I'm only earning 20,000 or 10,000 or 30,000 Kenya shillings. How can I survive? So this video is basically meant for you. It's meant to show you how you can survive on a 20,000 Kenya shilling salary, a $200 salary a month. And people have done it. There's a reason they did it that way, and there's a reason they survived and they still survive up to now. Now, there are certain things that could be detrimental that they did that we can't do now, because then they affected their health, they strained their mental capacities. They basically aged out because then they strained too much to try and do certain things. So of course we want to try and do things more efficiently as time goes by. But still, it's extremely important that we discuss how did they manage to use that small salary to do so many things. Well, right now, people who are in town or in urban areas cannot even utilize $1,000 a month to live a fulfilling life. What happened? How did they do it? That's our discussion for today. As usual, here at Kensmoneymatters, talk about the money mindset, how to make that money, how to enjoy that money, how to manage that money, how to invest that money, and how to assure yourself a lifetime of income. Basically, financial freedom. I'm a product of a teaching family. I'm a product of teachers. My mom is a teacher. My dad was a teacher. My stepmoms, both of them, 2 of them, were teachers when they were alive, because I come from a polygamous family. So the whole home was basically a home of teachers. And you can imagine the kind of things that they've done. All of them had many children. We all done well for ourselves. We've all done what we wanted to do in life. We went to university. Unless those who didn't want to go to university, we were taken to good schools. Personally, I went to private school from a very early age. I went to a boarding school at a very early age in life. So all these things were done on a 20,000 Kenya shillings salary. How was this happening? Guys, before I go there, let me just give a disclaimer here. Somebody keeps giving WhatsApp numbers in the comment section. Please, I don't give my WhatsApp number. Somebody's using my profile picture, using the same name and giving some WhatsApp number and telling you to text them. No, I don't do that. The only way you can reach me is through my website, www.kensmoneymatters.com, and then you can use a form there to reach out to me, or there's a link straight to my inbox from that website, and there's no way someone can hack that. So I don't put my number in the comment section. Please be wary of scammers. I've reported this to YouTube. I've removed some of them, but sometimes they're just too many. They are robots, basically. Be careful about that when you're coming, when you're commenting. If someone puts a number and says, inbox me here, no, not me, not me. Anyway, guys, back to the point. How did these teachers manage to survive? Nowadays, we can't even survive with 100,000. You can't survive with 200,000 a month, or you find that to be little. So how did teachers survive, and how do they survive up to now? And this is going to be from a real life experience, because I'm from a teaching family. I'm from teachers. I saw this happen. I'm sitting right here, having done so many things in life, having gone to so many schools, having achieved quite a number of degrees that were expensive, having gone to a good school because of a teacher who was married way early, a teacher who was basically so naive when she got married, and she still managed go back to school, get that teaching certificate, get into teaching, and take us all to school. How did she do it? And how did the other people that we know do it? I'm going to give you my views on how they did it. Doesn't mean that this is exactly why they did it. It could be that there are other reasons too that supported it, but I'm going to give you the main points of why they succeeded. And this is also a way for you to try and manage your money so that you can actually utilize 20,000, 30,000 salary to make good judgment, to make good choices, and make more money. And you can as well build wealth, and so one day sit back down and say, hey, you know what, I was a teacher for this number of days and I made money. I know teachers are watching, I know nurses are watching, I know people who get not very high salaries are watching, okay? And that's the whole idea of this particular video, is to show you that even with that low salary, it's possible to achieve your dreams. It's possible to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. I don't only talk to people who earn hundreds of thousands. I actually focus on people who earn less, because I know with less, you can make way more. So how they manage to do this will also put us on the right path on how we can actually make certain decisions. I'm not saying do exactly what they did, because then again, you don't want to strain your health. Like I said earlier, they did strain too much. But you want to apply some of the principles that they did apply in a different setting, in a different environment, in a different way that can fit with the current situation, and use it to make money and build wealth. So the first thing is that these teachers that we keep talking about, these nurses, people who are earning low, around 20,000 salary, sometimes even less than 20,000, they basically lived below their means. So for example, in my family, there are certain things we knew we couldn't afford. And if we couldn't afford them, we were not going for them. We didn't go out looking for the things that we couldn't afford. So living within your means is one way that these people managed to do what they did. Because if they knew very well that I'm only earning 20,000, I have to make sure that my life is not going beyond maybe 5,000 a month. So you could find that we could only eat meat once or on a Friday. The other days, everything was sourced locally. And therefore, you didn't have to go shopping every single time, buying fish, buying meat, buying all the crazy stuff that actually are not healthy at all. So they live within their means. There are certain kind of shoes that you couldn't just buy because we couldn't afford them. I love buying shoes because I couldn't buy shoes then. There are so many things we couldn't do because we couldn't afford them at that time. Like they say, you have to cut your coat according to your size. So living within your means and making sure that you spend as less as possible would help you start building wealth. If you're going to spend everything that you make, probably you won't be able to build wealth because you won't have anything left. So even if you're earning less, try to live on much less. That's it. And avoid lifestyle creep. Because what happens to young people is that now we don't just get 20,000, we get 100,000 now. But then your life, it has 90,000, or your life goes up to 110,000. Anytime you get an increase, your life also creeps up. It's what we call the lifestyle creep. So you are always inflating your life to match the kind of salary that you're getting, and sometimes even overinflating it beyond your salary. There's no way you can build wealth. So one thing is that they were not in competition with anyone, they didn't have any lifestyle creep, and they live within their means constantly and consistently in a comfortable way. They were content to a certain level. The second thing that they did was loans. Loans can help you. I'm someone who's against debt, but again I say it depends on your mindset, which is something I tackle in my coaching sessions. If you have the right mindset with regards to loans, if you know how to go about it, if you're a disciplined person and you know exactly why you're taking the loan, which is why I did tell people not to take their loans, because they never have a reason for taking it. They never know why they're taking it. They just take a loan because the facility is available to them. But if you know, like these teachers knew, I'm taking a loan to take my child to school. Personally, my mom took a loan to take me to university. My mom took a loan to take us to school. I know of how much she paid. I know of how much she was earning when she was paying the loan. And we still survived on that money because our lifestyle was already used to less. So we didn't go out, complaining because now she was paying so much loan. Our lifestyle looked the same for us. So they used those loans diligently. They used the facility of a loan, but not just to take loan for the sake of it, but to use it diligently, top up, use it, top up, and do what they wanted to do. So this is another way that they managed to take us to school, to build their own houses, to start small businesses. So loans can help you build something, but you have to have the right mindset, and you must be diligent, you must be disciplined. And that is what they had. They had discipline. So when they got a loan, they will never go drinking the loan. When they got a loan, they will never spend it on something else rather than what they took it for. And they made sure that that money fully went into that particular function. Then the third thing is Chamas, closely related to loans, but not as much. So Chamas were more like a social interaction thing, and it gave them loans and savings facilities. Now, I would use Chama as a savings point for women and for these teachers. Most of them were in these small Chamas, and these small Chamas gave them what we call social capital besides just the economic capital. So they had friends who could then come through for them. They had loans that they could take on a short notice. So a child has been taken off school because of school fees, because of a balance, they can run to the Chama secretary or treasurer and say, hey, I need this much, I'll bring it back at the end of the month with this much interest at a low interest rate. So they use this Chama to build something. This is what was available for them. They used what was available at that particular time in those circumstances. I'm not saying use Chamas at the moment because I don't like Chamas for younger people. There are better options now, but these people had no option. So one thing is that these Chamas were used as a way to get these facilities that could easily give them quick money that they could use to do the things they wanted to do. And this is something that most of us who are in Chamas now don't do. We are in Chamas, we get that money, and then we use it on something else. But again, I don't see why you need a Chama now because we have so many facilities, so much information, and so many things to invest in. The other thing was small businesses. these people always tried to start small businesses to increase their income. This is something I say all the time. You have to find ways in which you can increase your income. You have to find ways in which you can boost your income. So they were not just sitting on the 20,000. You could find a teacher has some farming. Like my parents always had farming. They always had other things going on. My mom had a shop at a very early age, like just a home shop where I could buy small stuff here and there. My dad had like a meat business. My dad had like a hardware business. All these things, they took loan, they started small businesses to try and boost their income. So they didn't just sit down and wait for money from the salary. They didn't just sit down and wait for money to be paid monthly. They didn't just sit down and wait for their monthly payments. They found ways in which they could boost their income, even if it meant just getting 1,000 extra a month. Then that would be very helpful. And for things like farming, you can imagine then it meant all the agricultural produce was from the farm and not bought. If you're going to buy everything, it makes life more expensive. So you have to buy food for your children all the time. You have to do every single thing from cash. But if you are farming, then chances are you are always covered. Like my mom always had maize. My mom always had beans. My mom always had bogas and those kitchen gardens. We never went to the market to spend money on things like tomatoes, onions, and stuff like that. All those things were sourced locally. We never went to buy this flour from the shops. We never went to buy beans. We never went to buy peas. All these things were in-house. Things like groundnuts, and she had extra to sell to other people and be able to take us to school. My dad had cows, and you could find that there were like 7, 8 cows. When someone was going to school, they sell these cows. All these things were basically ways in which they could boost their income. Now, it could be different for you right now that you could have to do it in a different way because there are many ways in which you can boost your income, which is something I'm going to do soon. So let me know if you want me to do a video on how you can boost your income with just 20,000 Kenya shillings as salary. So they found ways in which they could boost their income. They found ways in which they could increase that cash flow. So that's the one thing I talk about. You need cash flow. And if you know you're earning less, you need to find ways in which you can boost it. And not big ways, not massive ways really. Just things you could invest something like 5K, you could invest something like 10K, you can invest something like just 2,000-3,000 and manage to get something out of it, even if it is just in hundreds every single month, because with time and with consistency, it gets better. Then again, they avoided unnecessary expenses. A lot of us now spend money on things we don't need. Now, our parents and teachers generally never spent money on things they never needed. Everything was well planned for, everything was known, everything was needed. Things that were not needed and things that could actually be improvised, were improvised. So we didn't just spend money for the sake of spending it. You couldn't find a teacher's house with lots of toys just hanging around. You couldn't find a teacher's house with lots of furniture just hanging around. You couldn't find a teacher's house with lots of utensils just hanging around, apart from the ones that were kept for visitors, right? So everything was necessary. Everything in the house was necessary. Everything in the home was actually necessary that it should be there. And if some of these things or tasks could be done, if some of these tasks could be done using handmade things, then you made them and you used them to do these tasks. So we didn't go out buying all massive garden machines and stuff like that. Things were only bought if they were extremely necessary. So that again is something that has now affected us because we're busy buying things that we don't even use. Sometimes I look at my house and I buy certain things and I'm like, am I using even? After 1 month, I'm not even interested in that thing. Or I buy something today, I feel like I really need it. I buy a gadget, I feel like I really need it, but after 2-3 months, I'm done with it. I buy an iPad, I buy a laptop, I buy screens that I want to project all my tradings and stuff. After a while, I'm like, I'm not even using it. I still use my laptop, just the single laptop I've always been using, and now everything else is not being used. So we have this idea of just buying things for the sake of it. We have this impulse buying, whereby we just feel like, I need this, I need this, I need this. But in real sense, do you need it? So these people didn't have that. They knew that every single thing they bought was necessary for their survival and the survival of their children. So there was nothing for luxury or extreme comfort. Everything was necessity. It was required for survival. And then this is very important. They had good relationships. So for example, not good relationship in terms of the quality of the relationships, but when they were in a marriage, when they were in any kind of relationship, possibly marriage, yeah, because people got married quite early, they used that relationship to build wealth. They used it to bring their resources together. So you could find that teachers always married teachers. So like I just said, my family, my dad was a teacher and my moms were teachers, all of them. So in that sense, you find that they could bring their resources together, like my mom and my dad or the other moms, and then find ways in which they could use these resources from the same pool and use to diversify and invest in different areas. So they used those relationships they had. And remember, there was nothing like divorce, really. There was nothing like separation most of the time. You had to stay in that marriage despite the quality of it. That's a discussion for a different day. But you had to stay in the marriage. These people stayed in the marriage despite what was happening. And therefore, you had to work within the marriage with your finances. So they brought their finances together most of the time and used that relationship to build something. They used the relationship to build stuff. If it was 20,000 and you're now two people earning 20, you had 40,000. Now you can plan for 40,000. Now you can take more than one loan. Now you can find ways in which you can take more money from Chamas because you have more income. And of course, you have the small businesses and you have your farming. So you find that they found a way of using that relationship. And I always mention, use your relationship to build wealth. If you are someone who is honest, even if that relationship ends, that should not interfere with the wealth building process. You can always give the person their dues and find ways of separating the finances. But remember, at that time, that was not an option. Most of the time, you had to stay in there. And you had children. You had to bring these children together. You had to pay their school fee. You had to make sure their welfare is, you had to make sure they have everything well taken care of. So the issue of even leaving or divorce or stuff like that didn't really linger as much. Basically, they used their relationships to build wealth. And closely tied to that, it's friendships. These people had friendships and connections and, all over the place. They were known by people. So you could find that my mom could just call the person in a private school or owning a private school and say, hey, you know what? I want my child to join your private school and they're going to be paying at least this amount every month. I don't have the whole amount, but I will be paying you. I will be supplying you with mboga. I will be supplying you with maize. I will be doing 1, 2, 3. There were ways in which they use their connections and their friendships to help them, even in terms of harambes. So you could find that if they called a harambe to take their children to school, people would come because people knew them. So they made good friendships, they made good connections, they had very good social network, and they used them as partnerships to build wealth. Nowadays, you might not have that, but there are ways in which you can use partnerships. Use someone who can have access to something you don't have access to, and use that thing to build something that you cannot build at the moment on your own. So partnerships and friendships. These people use partnerships, they use friendships, they use their connections. You could find, for example, that someone wants to go to high school, and then you realize that it's one of your colleagues who is now the principal of that new high school. So you call them, you talk to them, and you tell them, hey, I don't have this money, but I'm willing to pay you this much every single month or every single week, or I'm willing to do 1, 2, 3 for me to be able to retain my child in school. So they used all these connections, not very high level connections, but just normal friendships, normal connections, to actually make their life better. So use your friendships, use your circles, and that's why you must also have a good circle around you. You must have people who can support you, you must have people who challenge you, you must have people you can call on that can actually come to your aid. If you have a harambe today or a fundraiser, you must have a few people who can come to your aid and give you something. And then they are constantly sharing their vulnerabilities. So these are people who are not hiding. So they told their friends if they had a problem, they called fundraisers. If they had any issue, they were sharing. They were out there. Nowadays, we don't share our vulnerabilities. We think talking about money is shameful. We don't want to talk about it. It's secrecy because of trauma, financial trauma. But these people were open to share. So their friends knew what they were going through financially. If they had a problem, they would call people to come and support them. If someone was sick, they would call people to come and support them. If someone was going to school, they could come call someone to support them. It's because they were sharing their vulnerability. If you cannot share your vulnerability, it's not a strength, it's a weakness. And that's something that's very common with people right now. That's why you are really struggling with your 100,000 while those people survived with just 20,000. And then long-term view. I tell people all the time, you must have a long-term view. Those people planned. They planned for their children's future in years in advance. My mom planned on how we were going to go to school years in advance. She was like, hey, if I take this loan and then by the time you finish in 4 years, the next person I can top up the loan again, then the next person will be going for 4 years, then I can top up the loan again, then the other person is going for 4 years, then your dad can do this. So there was a proper strategy and proper planning and proper long-term view. They were not in the moment only, but they were thinking, what's going to happen in the next 5 years? What's going to happen in the next 10 years? Where is my child going to be? Where is my house going to be? Am I going to have a permanent house? How do I do it? How do I start putting things together so that I can have that house by the time I want it up? It's not about just putting all the materials and building that house. It's about putting everything in place before you even start the process of building. You already know how you're going to do it over a period of time. So it's a long-term view. That's something I do encourage. think long term. And of course, above all is this mindset. They had a different kind of mindset. They had the mindset of making money. They have the mindset of possibilities. They had the mindset of, you know what, this is not the option, but we have to make it. So that mindset, I think their mindset was so different. I could say they were steadfast people. They were steadfast in the path they had chosen. They were steadfast in what they wanted to achieve. And they had a very open mindset when it came to using their resources, using what was around them to take their children and take their life to the next level. And this, according to me, is how these teachers manage to survive. And you can pick so many lessons, lots of lessons on how to start managing your money right now. Thank you guys. I hope it's been helpful. I hope you've picked something. Let me know in the comment section what you picked and if you want me to do a video on how to use 20,000 salary to boost your income. Cheers guys. Peace out.